In the last 15 days, we have provided nonstop updates on Cody Rhodes, but today we might actually have the big one based on a new report that confirms Cody Rhodes for WrestleMania. In addition to that story, we are going to discuss a little bit about some backstage drama in AEW. One story that we've kind of touched on before, but now we're actually getting details on. It's a very interesting story. Also, Chris Jericho reveals why he is not the EVP in AEW. Very respectable answer, and I want to talk about that a little bit in depth as well. As always, if you guys want to stay updated with everything happening in pro wrestling, this is the channel to subscribe to, and I would greatly appreciate it. Let's talk about Chris Jericho. He is the OG of AEW. In fact, I would say, obviously Tony Khan and AEW have put out a freaking amazing product since they've come out, but if it wasn't for Chris Jericho, I think AEW would have had a slower start. There was a lot of momentum with Chris Jericho kind of leaving WWE and exploring, NJPW, and there was rumors at the time that Chris Jericho was going to be at Impact. Chris Jericho, in my opinion, he should get a lot of credit for what he's done since joining AEW. Now, in an interview with SportsIllustrated.com, Chris Jericho talked about his role with the company and why he was not an EVP. Chris Jericho says, "You mentioned earlier that I wasn't an EVP. The only reason why I wasn't an EVP is because I didn't want to be. They asked me, and I said, no, that's way too much work for what you are planning on doing. And Tony Khan's the boss anyways. I knew that from the start, so I wasn't going to grab and use a EVP as an ego boost. F that. Just give me more money. My job was to be a big star and make new ones, so everyone is valuable." Now, I know it might seem like a long time away, but you got to remember that Chris Jericho, everything he has done for Inner Circle, being one of the hottest acts in the beginning of AEW. Now Chris Jericho is working with other stars, putting them in meaningful situations, right? Eddie Kingston in a prominent storyline, Proud and Powerful in a prominent storyline, Sammy Guevara, TNT champion. Everybody within Inner Circle has something happening. And on top of that, it goes beyond the Inner Circle. The EVP role is not as important as I think people think it is. And I want to be careful how I word this, but yes, it is very awesome to be an EVP of a wrestling company. What Chris Jericho has shown us, though, is that you don't need to be an EVP to be a big deal in AEW. And it goes to show you that AEW is not making it all about leadership. They're really trying to hone in on the fact that their wrestlers are the stars of the show. You see guys like the Young Bucks who might use their EVP title to enhance their heel character. Same thing with Kenny Omega, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about the wrestlers and the storylines that are being written. And Jericho has been far more beneficial as a top star for AEW than he ever would have been as an EVP. I also think it's important for Chris Jericho to at some point return to WWE, and I want to make that clear. I think Chris Jericho needs to retire in WWE, but who knows how that plays out. I just think Chris Jericho is trying to do what's best for the business and not best for himself. And in turn, by doing what is best for the business, actually ended up being best for Chris Jericho. He's going to get a lot of money one day from WWE to come back, retire, do the Hall of Fame, that type of thing. But I do think Chris Jericho ends his career in AEW as well. I want to talk a little bit about Chavo Guerrero because we've been talking about this for a while. And Chavo Guerrero is now in a very, very interesting situation with AEW. There appears to be a little backstage drama. Tony Khan not answering calls and texts. I want to give a shout out to Nick Hausman from Wrestling Inc., who had this incredible interview with Chavo Guerrero, getting the exclusive details on everything you need to know between Chavo Guerrero and AEW. And I find this to be a very interesting situation. I want to read a couple different excerpts. So Guerrero told Wrestling Inc. that when he started in AEW last year, he was told that he could work for the company for a couple months, but then an opportunity opened up for him to do some work on NBC's Young Rock. You guys know The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, has the show Young Rock. Now, Guerrero goes on to say, so when I talked to Tony about it, I said, hey, they just called me. I am going back to Young Rock. What are your thoughts on that? He says, oh, I think it's a great opportunity, man. I mean, we are on a roll with you and Andrade, but it's a great opportunity. I think you should go and do that. Then you will have a job when you come back. Guerrero then goes on to say that while he was working for the Young Rock television show, they asked him if he could stay a little bit longer. So what he does is he starts reaching out to Tony Khan. Tony Khan, at this point, is ignoring his texts and phone calls. So Guerrero says, coming back in early February, started giving Tony some texts, no answer, no reply. Called him, left him a voice message, no reply whatsoever. I'm like, okay. Then all of a sudden, I see that I'm not part of the roster page anymore. So it kind of pisses me off, to be honest. Also, another thing to keep in mind, in the same exact interview, Nick Hausman actually says, Chavo is talking to Nick Hausman and says, one of the things that, the reason why I pissed him off is because he's dealt with other billionaires. He's worked for Vince McMahon. So, he doesn't really expect this behavior. And honestly, when we first originally talked about Chavo Guerrero, it was a very weird situation. Nobody knew originally in that video that when we talked about Chavo not being on the roster page, was he released? What the hell happened? Chavo revealed, he was only contracted for like 3 months, and that's it. So technically he's not under contract. He's not on the roster page, but for whatever reason it is, they haven't got back to him and told him what's going on. And I think, that's kind of the issue. And I'm not sure. Obviously, Tony Khan's got a million things on his plate. I'm just not sure. It doesn't strike me as like Tony Khan and AEW in a situation where they would ignore Chavo Guerrero, but nonetheless, that seems to be an issue here. And I hope things get better. I like Chavo Guerrero. I was really, really excited to see what they were going to do with him, Jose, and Andrade. Obviously, at that time, too, there were rumors that Ric Flair was coming in, but then the Ric Flair Plane Ride from Hell episode dropped, and that freaking screwed everything up. So I am curious to see if they make amends here, if they bring back Chavo. Tony Khan has not publicly talked about this. I get that Chavo Guerrero is not, he's not the top star of the company, but he was part of the act with Andrade, and it just wasn't explained, which is weird. I thought AEW might have explained what the hell happened to Chavo. Guys, I know it sounds like we've been talking about Cody Rhodes for a long time. We have been. It's literally been nonstop updates. Yesterday, we made a video talking about conflicting reports because there was 2 reports out on the same day. Now, Steve from Ringside News is coming out suggesting that internal documents from WWE are showing that Cody is scheduled for WrestleMania. And it got me thinking about something really, really important that I want to discuss specifically in this video. So Ringside News reported that Cody is scheduled for WrestleMania, and this was confirmed by a tenured member of the creative team. The source told them, I know what's scheduled for Cody for Mania and that it's still on the list. If it is changed, no one has told us yet or corrected the internal documents. Now keep in mind, internal documents are reportedly changed very often in WWE. The source also added, Cody as of an hour ago is still on the internal documents for WrestleMania. At this point, there is no information available to what he will be doing on the show, but it is indicated that he is that a deal has been signed and that he is planned for the show. Now, here's the thing that we got to talk about very briefly because this is so incredibly important. There was talks from Cassidy Haynes from Bodyslam.net who said talks have fizzled out. And I'm not saying Cassidy has any reason to lie, right? Bodyslam.net has literally nailed so many good stories, and it just goes to show you how many great players are in the game of wrestling media. There's a lot of people who have brought out good reports. So I'm not saying Cassidy is wrong. I think there is a very good chance that WWE could have leaked out certain talks or leaked out certain reports that maybe their talks with Cody Rhodes have fizzled out. I think WWE knows in terms of business for them that perhaps leaving this as a surprise could be a really, really, really big deal. And I think WWE doesn't want people to know that Cody is actually going there. And it's very well possible that WWE could be playing, these sources could be playing different members of the media. Because keep in mind, the other day we were talking about Meltzer, who indicated that Cody was going to WWE and the return is imminent. I do not know what WWE is doing here, but Ringside News has nailed some big reports as well. And credit to Ringside News, credit to Cassidy, credit to all of these guys. I know Sean Ross Sapp plans to get involved in the mix by Monday. He said he's going to chime in with what he knows. I do think Cody is headed to WrestleMania, and right now it seems like the plans are confirmed that Cody is there. He's listed internally, and until otherwise, we have to go with this. And this is not a knock towards AEW. AEW is putting on a good product with or without Cody Rhodes, and that's what happens when you don't rely on one superstar. One wrestler does not make the show, and I give a lot of credit to AEW. And I think it's time for people to move on with this idea that perhaps Cody is WWE bound. And let's give it a chance and let's see what happens. And if it sucks, then we'll discuss that later. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I know this video was a little bit longer than normal, but I really want to get my points across, especially with these big stories. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you next time.